The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, November 3rd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, founder, editor-in-chief of Bolts Magazine, Daniel Nichanian. And the races to watch tomorrow, in addition, of course, to the New York City mayoral election. Meanwhile, Trump tacos sitting in for Wednesday's SCOTUS oral arguments on tariffs. Says he's not going to go now. New York City smashes records for early turnout times 5. Whew. Also, some good news from Mamdani in those numbers. Young people came out in droves, representing 56% of early voting. Meanwhile, the U.S. kills another random 3 people on the Caribbean Sea. Don't know much about them. Very likely just fishermen. Meanwhile, Trump at an all-time low all-time high in unfavorability, all-time low for his second term in favorability. And however, Democrats remain unable to gain that support. Shut down a day away from the longest in U.S. history, as court-ordered SNAP benefits are supposed to be issued today. Elections across the country tomorrow may very well set the tone for the midterms, and also may very well be a predicate for Trump's military deployments. Federal judge, meanwhile, halts National Guard's deployment in Oregon. An RFK Jr. FDA top drug regulator, RFK Jr.'s FDA top drug regulator resigns after unspecified ethical concerns. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday. This is a big week.
Monday. Yeah, I know. It might actually
says Emma Vigland.
Hello,
of the
Sam.
Majority Report.
Yes, that's me. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's going to be a very, very good week, hopefully. Hopefully.
There's a big election tomorrow. The numbers over the weekend in terms of early voting were just massive. We will get into that later in the program.
And there's also just huge races across the country, too, getting a little less attention, like Omar Fateh in Minneapolis. Got to give him a shout out.
In Minneapolis. Omar and Robin, and there's other great candidates running in Minneapolis, too. Minneapolis, definitely lock in.
Katie Wilson.
Ranked choice voting
Seattle.
There.
Yeah.
Ranked choice voting, very important to keep in mind.
Don't rake fry.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we know, sort of how that's working, or
that's the strategy, I believe, is don't rank fry.
We have other races. We have one that's right across the, which way is it? The west, the river to our west. Well, actually, it's right across 2 rivers for us here in New Jersey. And I suspect that there's going to be an interesting compare and contrast relative to what happens in New York City. Now, of course, New Jersey isn't as blue as New York City is, but in some respects, the choice between Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo, with all due respect to Curtis Sliwa, and I actually mean that, I appreciate him sticking in the race. I have far more respect for Curtis Sliwa than I do for Andrew Cuomo.
Yep.
But the disparity, or I should say the contrast between Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo seems to me to be as big as perhaps Mickey Sherrill and Chitterelli. I honestly, I don't know how it's pronounced.
But they had to bring in
Demonetized.
Obama. I mean, it's interesting because that race is closer than it should be, and Cheryl is just like a standard mainstream Democrat, and it's been a fairly uninspiring campaign. So they have to bring in Obama at the 11th hour and note who doesn't need Obama and who does. Like, I think there's a tale of these two campaigns showing when you activate voters on that level and you're not just operating along the margins with risk-averse tactics, you're able to have more comfortability going into Election Day.
And I think that's going to be a big part of our conversation on Wednesday. I mean, but we'll see. We don't know how this is going to turn out. In the meanwhile, we are on day 34 of the government shutdown, 35 being the record. We're definitely going to blow through that. And we'll have more to say on the shutdown. Again, supposedly we're going to see SNAP benefits restored as of today, but one never knows with this administration. But what is clear is that we have this dynamic where Donald Trump, and honestly, like, this is no surprise.
Right.
The images that are we see on a daily basis of Trump's Gestapo masked paramilitary squads going around beating up people, shooting people, ramming people's cars. That's a new tactic they have. If you follow ICE, which you're perfectly legal for you to do, they now apparently have been doing some stuff like where they'll slam on their brakes, where they may even reverse. Always good to have your video camera rolling in those instances. People see these images on top of the fact that inflation is in no way improved, on top of the fact that you have different sectors of our economy getting slammed because of the tariffs, on top of the fact that, as far as we know, job numbers are probably gotten worse. We don't know because of the government shutdown. But certainly we're seeing more data that suggests people are having to look for second jobs. We're seeing layoffs from places like UPS and Amazon in the run-up to what is ostensibly the busiest season of the year for outfits like this, right? Deliveries and retail stores, this is where they make their money for the year. That's why they call it Black Friday. It is supposedly the day when all these businesses go from cash outflows into cash inflows for the year.
There was stats. I saw that Matt Brunig posted some of these this chart from Moody's Analytics showing that the top, and we've said this before on the show, but confirming the top 10% of earners are now responsible for 50% of consumption in this country. It's just the economy. There's an entirely different economy for the top 10, 20%, and everybody else.
20% is responsible for 80% of the consumption. This is the graph. I actually like, artistically speaking, I also sort of like the way it looked. I saved this to maybe like just sort of frame it. But you can see that what's going on here in terms of the of share of spending. And, you know, this is something that we've been talking about. Again, I think we mentioned this on Friday. During the Biden administration, like the economic indicators that we have used to judge the health of the economy for a long time, to the extent that they were accurate or not, you know, I think that's a separate question. There's a lot of questions about not even so much about being accurate, but as providing an accurate picture for what the economy is doing. But even in its own terms, those numbers seem to not tell us anything, or tell us a lot less now, because a smaller percentage of the population is driving so much of the economic activity that it no longer means anything for the majority of people who are living in the country. And so you can't really assess. I mean, it's almost the same dynamic as, when people would say, United States is the place where princes and kings from around the world come to get their surgery.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's great, except for that's not available for anybody else in the country. And so what's the value of measuring healthcare as a function of what it provides for the richest 2% in the world? And our economy, broadly speaking, is, I think, is in that same category now. Certainly, they're saying this about the stock market, that a significant percentage, I don't know what it was, I think I read the other day, but like something like 80% of the gains have been a function of AI, which of course is at this point, it is not anything other than a speculative bubble in many respects. And so
NVIDIA's, I think, 15% of US market cap. That is not sustainable. That is not sustainable. And it just hit a record of valuation of, I think, $5 trillion. And that's all based on the bubble that you're talking about right now. It will burst. It will burst. And
so at the very least, it does not give us a picture of what's going on in the country in terms of like how people's lived lives are. And so it is not a surprise that Donald Trump's numbers are in the toilet. What perhaps is more of a surprise is that it doesn't seem to be benefiting Donald Trump's supposed opposition. Here is David Chalian on CNN. It's not Harry Amden, that guy.
Or Enton.
Approval rating right now, John, sits at 37%. That is a low mark in this term for Donald Trump. His disapproval is at 63%. That's a high mark for his entire time as president, first and second term combined. I will say Democrats and independents fleeing him, of course. Republicans still with him, which is why we'll see him doing these tele-rallies tonight for the Republican candidates for governor. Take a look over the course of this year. You'll see down here, mid-February, late February, he was at 48% approval. That was a honeymoon period after the election. He's now been steadily going down all year long. Why? One of the reasons why, it seems, is that the American people think he's gone too far when using presidential power. 61% say so, way up from February. And deporting undocumented immigrants, 57% of Americans in this poll, John, say that he has gone too far in doing that. And in fact, he said just the opposite on 60 Minutes last night.
David, a great man, called this poll sort of a mood ring for the country. And it does seem that voters are saying they're in a pretty bad mood.
They are. It's a pretty sour American electorate out there. 32% of Americans say things are going well in the country, John. 68% say they're going badly. This is clearly driven in large part by the economy, which is by far and away the most important issue for Americans. 47% say economy, cost of living, top issue. 26% say state of democracy. 10% say immigration. 7%, crime and safety.
Pause it. Wait. Just go back. Just keep it up there and just go back a frame or two if you can, so we get
the color of the mood ring.
Well, I mean, aside from like, I don't know why you have to say like the most important. Just say what's the mood.
I'm sorry,
polling.
I don't mean to be bitchy about it.
No, I'm saying why do they have to do that? Like treat everybody like they're four.
I don't know.
But what I find fascinating is look at crime and safety is 7%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, healthcare, I imagine, is going to shoot up. Because people over the past couple of days are getting their new numbers, and we'll talk about this later. But Brian even has a story of like someone he knows. I don't know how explicit you want to get.
Deductible went from 500 to 6,000.
This is just catastrophic health insurance, which used to cost like $32 a month because it doesn't cover anything unless you literally keep you out of bankruptcy. And even then, it probably had an annual cap or a lifetime cap. Okay, so the deductible goes there, and the premium goes from what?
It goes from $500, which with tax credits was $40 a month, to $750 with no tax credits.
Right. And that was like we saw, like the jump between 5, whatever it was, and 740 is the 26% that KFF had talked about. But without the subsidies, it's 100, whatever it is, 114%. Yeah.
Way more than that.
Yep. All right, let's continue here. I just wanted to note that crime and safety thing because remember, we are 2 years out from that being like the story. Tren de Aragua is everywhere, and we're all going to die.
Well, that's his one of his best issues. He's underwater on every issue basically, but crime and safety is, according to other polls, still where he's least underwater. But to give people a sense of what people's priorities are, at least on the national level, when you're talking about the presidency. Crime and safety is going to matter more in a municipal election or in a mayoral race than it is going to matter for the president. So it's just like, even on his best issue, that is a very low priority to people. And what is dragging his approval rating down, the economy, there was a separate Washington Post Ipsos poll that showed that he's really, really underwater there. 62% disapprove of his handling of the economy to 37% approval. And that is the kind of thing that means something in terms of like the overall popularity of the Republicans.
All right, continue with it.
7, crime and safety. And so what does that mean in terms of Trump's policies affecting the U.S. economy? Well, 61% of Americans say they've worsened the American economy. Only 27% say Trump's policies have improved the economy, John.
That 61% is a tough number for Republicans facing election tomorrow, and certainly for the president as he tries to improve his position heading into the midterms next year.
Yeah, it does. That's very insightful. Let's look at those numbers from the what do you got
from
from
the Post that I
Ipsos?
mentioned. Yeah.
This is from the Washington Post ABC Ipsos poll. That is not the poll, but it is the way that Trump celebrated his numbers. I mean, this is it's full on eat the, let him eat cake.
This is what I was referencing earlier here.
And on that other poll, his disapproval numbers, I think, were higher. So, they're around super high to amazingly high, his disapproval numbers. But he's, you can go through this. I mean, we see that.
He's over 60% disapproval on the economy, managing the federal government, and tariffs are his worst. He's ahead of where Biden is on Israel and Gaza. That is maybe actually, besides crime, his best
still
polling.
52%
disapproval still. And that is, I think, the reason that he even has an advantage on that issue is because he did, at the very least, have the temporary ceasefire that keeps getting broken and the genocide, but it was something. Every issue he's underwater, every single issue. And but the concerning part of that poll, which isn't in this graphic, is that there was another question that they asked in terms of looking at the Democratic Party. And I know
11, I think you can put this up.
Yeah, it's in the article. 7 in 10 U.S. adults say the Democratic Party is out of touch, versus 6 in 10 for Trump and the Republicans. Now, you made the great point before the show that a lot of that is driven by voters, Democratic voters themselves,
who see the Democratic Party. And apparently the polling shows
keep going
that the dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party is the primary thing is that they're not fighting Trump enough.
Right.
And I mean, I think there's a lack of leadership.
Yep.
Which is specifically the strategy that the Democrats are following, and their theory being that, like, well,
that's it.
At the end of the day, they're going to have to, there's only 2 choices, and they're going to have to vote for us, and that may work. It didn't work in 2024.
No.
I mean, it was the exact same strategy, right? Like, we're not going to change anything. We represent, like, stability. You don't want this crazy guy. Now, maybe, when the crazy guy is there and you have the sort of secular party out of power does well, maybe you can overcome the gerrymandering that's taking place. Maybe, but it's also possible that the Democratic voter has reached a point where they're sick of it. Like, you look at the compromise numbers from, I've said this before, in 2010, the number of Democrats that would say, do you want to compromise or do you want to fight the Republicans? Compromise would always win. And I think that's reversed now.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't worked. There's only so many times you can go to the table with the Republicans and negotiate with them. And, I started just noodling around Schumer, back in the 08 and 2010 and 2012 and 2016 archives. And he was so intent on negotiating all sorts of things and taking Ryan at face value and promote. I mean, it was just, you see where this all came from, and desperately going to giving more and more. And I will say, to the credit of the Democrats today, they know they can't do this anymore because it's Trump is just out of control.
Right. But it is one of the more underrated stories in American politics right now, not on our show, but in the national press, which is the complete lack of credibility that the Democratic Party has with its own base right now. And that is why we're seeing the rise of Zohran Mamdani. It is why we are seeing the Graham Plattner campaign soldiering on despite these efforts by the DSCC to do this oppo dump to clear the field.
That's why Fateh has a chance against Fry in Minneapolis.
Yes, it is the idea that Democratic voters do not believe that that you're going to fight Donald Trump, and two, that the candidates that you are selecting are going to beat Republicans. Because why would that be the case? Because we've seen it over and over again. And so the party and the kind of more traditional players in the party are very slow to realize that they have basically lost the trust of a great majority of their base.
I mean, if I was Janet Mills, I would be leaking that I have a big fight with Gillibrand and Schumer to try and distance myself there. But
well, she won't even release her medical records, so I don't think she has much to leak at this point.
I mean,
she might be leaking elsewhere.
Emma, how could you?
Out of her diaper.
You thought that made it better?
Yeah. I actually did think I made it better.
I can't even imagine where you were going with the first thing then. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Daniel Nichanian. He's the founder and editor of Chief of Bolts magazine, going to give us a breakdown as to what are the races that we should be keeping an eye on for tomorrow, outside of the obvious ones, obviously. A couple words from our sponsors. This episode of the Majority Report brought to you by Wild Grain. What is Wild Grain? It is the first bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, seasonal pastries, and fresh pastas. All of their stuff bakes within 25 minutes. Obviously, the pastas you boil. I got a squash ravioli that was absolutely delicious.
I love
it. Was fantastic. And, let me go through what they say, and then I'll talk about what. Unlike store-bought, Wild Grain uses a slow fermentation process that's easier on your belly, richer in nutrients and antioxidants, and made with simple ingredients you can pronounce. So all this stuff is like going to an actual bakery that is, small-time bakery, not like one that is... shipping stuff that has to stay on the shelf for 6 weeks in your supermarket. Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable. They're constantly adding seasonal and limited time products for you to enjoy. Right now, they have tear and share cranberry pecan rolls, Parmesan herb biscuits, and apple pie bites. About a month or two ago, I got a bunch of apple cider donuts and pumpkin spice rolls. This is killing me to even talk
I
about
know.
this
Those
stuff.
apple cider donuts were amazing, by the way.
And I had a bunch of croissants, and I was baking those up for Saul. I mean, like, it's like, when do you get a chance to get like a warm croissant?
I
know. They're fantastic and great for the holiday. You want to make fresh baked bread for Thanksgiving? This is the way to do it, because it comes frozen. You pop it in the oven for less than 25 minutes. It comes out, and it is honestly the best fresh made bread you've ever had. Super convenient, super delicious. I gotta say, those cranberry pecan rolls, I can't get out of my head now. It makes you look like an expert at baker, but it also, like, again, you provide great stuff, and it's also a great gift going into both Thanksgiving and Christmas. For a limited time, Wild Grain offering our listeners $30 off your first box, plus free croissants in every box. When you go to wildgrain.com/majority to start your subscription, you heard me, free croissants in every box. That's $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/majority. Honestly, check this out. Also, all the packing, I know this has nothing to do with it, but all the packaging stuff was very easily recyclable, which always is important to me. Also, sponsoring the program today, Cozy Earth. Before the show, Emma was talking about her Cozy Earth pajamas, and it was completely insane.
Okay.
Now,
You
to
want
be
me to
fair,
tell the story?
Yes, go ahead. You can tell the story.
Okay, well, I'd gotten these as gifts for people, and I got rave reviews, and I just got my first pair, and I'm a little OCD about, some things, and neurotic.
Some things?
So, issues with control or superstitions, things like that. Got it. Okay. So I can only sleep in, no matter what the weather is, no matter, a big t-shirt and shorts or boxers. That's all I can do. I can't sleep in pants. I literally will not fall asleep. The first time I've fallen asleep in like a pajama set, it was the short sleeve and long pants in like a really long time, was those Cozy Earth pajamas that I tried over the weekend. And I couldn't believe it. So I've broken my obsessive compulsiveness, and I have to thank Cozy Earth because it's so dang comfortable.
Does that mean that everything that I think about the universe is wrong?
Cozy Earth is going to be very, very excited that their new tagline is "Break Your OCD." I will say, honestly, I mean, that conversation started because I was like, I really have gotten obsessive about my Cozy Earth sheets, because they are really, honestly, comfortable and temperature regulating. And this time of year is very difficult because they start to turn the heat on in the buildings.
Yep.
And then it's just like a balancing act because you can't finesse the heat. You got to open up the windows and blah blah blah. It's all, but all of their stuff. I mean, my favorite is the sweatshirt and the hoodie, but I don't know. It's like a competition for itself. But all of their stuff is made out of viscose, which is from bamboo. They also have something called the Bubble Cuddle Blanket. I have not tried this, but apparently it's the ultimate holiday gift for cozy moments. Bubble Cuddle Blanket combines comfort and style with its distinctively textured bubble design and ultra soft faux fur feel. Featuring an extended plush pile and mid-weight construction, perfect for snuggling by the fire, movie nights with family, or adding a touch of luxury to any room. A gift that makes every day feel like a special occasion. Look, here's the bottom line. 100-night sleep trial. You try them out. If you don't love them, you return them hassle-free. 10-year warranty. Because you feel this level of comfort, you're going to want it to last a decade. Believe me, I have had sheets that have worn out. And thanks to Cozy Earth for sponsoring this episode. Black Friday has come early at Cozy Earth right now. You can stack my code Majority Report on top of their site-wide sale, giving you up to 40% off in savings. That's CozyEarth.com's code is Majority Report for up to 40% off in savings. These deals won't last, so start your holiday shopping today. If you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth on the Majority Report. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Great gifts, honestly. Great gifts, very reasonable. All right, quick break. When we come back, Daniel Nichanian, founder and editor of Bolts Magazine. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Daniel Nichanian, founder, editor-in-chief of Bolts Magazine. I should say welcome back. Daniel, I think we've been having these conversations now for
many years.
many years.
Yeah.
I think it predates Bolts, actually. But be that as it may, you put out, I don't know if there's anybody anywhere who puts out a more comprehensive voting guide for races that I know you don't quite go down to dog catcher, but pretty close. But ones that also have become increasingly important. I mean, remember you did this during the first Trump administration, because the relationship between sheriffs very often and ICE is hugely important. And it's become even more important when the potential of ICE as a federal militia, I don't know what else, secret police grows. The disposition of various local leaders is going to become a lot more important. So on top of obviously the big races that we know about, this stuff is really helpful and important. So that's my long-winded way of saying welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me again.
Let's start with, obviously, we have a big race in New York City. Everybody, I think, who listens to this program knows that. We got why don't we start with governors, and then we'll work our way down and the implications of these races, and we'll work our way down because we have a couple of governors races that are going to be important. And also a couple of state house races that are going to be really important in terms of control. Where do we go with the governor's races?
Yeah, well, I think first I want to emphasize what you're saying. I think the point of this guide, of this conversations we're having, is to sort of help break down for people that state elections, local elections, of course, have a lot of stakes that are very contextual, very local, but for the very same issues for which you care about the federal government, the White House, immigration, housing, criminal justice, voting rights, the threats to democracy, that's really where so much is happening at the local level, at the state level. And that's very hard because there's so many states, so many cities, so many counties, and where am I going to look? What are the stakes? What are the hot spots? And so that's sort of where we break down. And the funnel this year starts right with governor races in Virginia and in New Jersey. In both cases, open races where the governor is not running for re-election, one Democrat, one Republican incumbent heading out. The Democrats seem to be favored at this moment to win both races, which will be a flip in Virginia and a hold in Jersey. Obviously, there is some suspense, as people who follow this can know, maybe a little more in New Jersey than in Virginia, but heading into the final day, it would be an upset for Republicans to pull off either seat, I believe.
And part of this story too, I should say, like obviously, in some weird ways, the more local you get, the more material the implications of who gets elected on the lived experience of people in these localities, particularly in light of all the ICE stuff and other issues, and who's going to make up for cuts in federal funding and whatnot. But we also have sort of like a narrative thing that's happening within the context of the Democratic Party. We were just talking about polling where Democratic voters in particular, I mean, Republicans are always going to be this way, but Democratic voters and independents perceive a lack of a fight by the Democrats, but also a lack of leadership. And it seems to me that at the very least in New Jersey, that's hopefully it doesn't prevent Mikey Sherrill from winning, but there does seem to be like a drag on her campaign.
I mean, it's sort of what we're sort of seeing different versions of the Democratic Party in New York City on one hand, where the left is ascendant and might win, and the other hand, more centrist incoming governors, perhaps in Jersey and Virginia. I think there's going to be a lot of debates. We're already seeing a lot of articles about which version of the party is gonna win. We're seeing some back and forth exchanges between the Democrats in Virginia, Democrats in New York City. At the end of the day, these are very different places, very, very different electorates as well. And it's usually there's been an expectation that activists, for instance, during the BLM protests, that activists in Minneapolis or New York or Philadelphia or wherever who are thinking about their police practices should be thinking about the big picture of what will help Democrats win or lose at the national level. I mean, that's just not usually how this works. People who are doing activism in Minneapolis don't necessarily, they're not, number one concern is not who's going to win in suburban Virginia, and vice versa in a way. So that's sort of what we're seeing play out. But some of it is also, you mentioned a few times, immigration, and governors have very strong authority to limit what state and local enforcement can do with regards to that. There's also somewhere where we're going to see perhaps differences in how Democrats play it out. We've seen in New Jersey and Virginia, the Democratic candidates have said they'll sort of keep in place existing protections in New Jersey or strike down some of what the Republican governor has done in Virginia, but have been cautious about going very far and promising new protections. Whereas in New York City, of course, there's a very different tone in the campaign there around how people are talking about immigration.
Let's go to state judges. In Pennsylvania is, I guess, the biggest sort of like state judges race. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court is been very important in terms of like redistricting questions. And I mean, we've seen this also in places like Wisconsin. There are 3 Democratic justices up for re-election in Pennsylvania. What are the implications of that? Could things flip?
Right. I mean, it's the race I'm most surprised hasn't gotten more attention at the level of the other ones, because it is the swing state. It's the biggest swing state in the country. It's a Supreme Court that has had a lot to say in the past few years on election law specifically, including rejecting President Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election at the time. So a big court, and there were 3 Democrats running to stay on the court. And usually those are pretty sleepy elections, because Pennsylvania has what's called a retention election. So it's not candidate A versus candidate B. It's just voters go and vote yes or no on keeping someone on the court. And those usually don't catch fire because there isn't an opponent. The default sort of is yes, but conservatives, like in April, sort of like, oh, a big opportunity to change the makeup of this court. And they've invested a lot more attention on these 3 races. And so Democrats right now have a 5-2 majority, and if Republicans were able to oust the 3 justices, it would erase Democrats' edge on the court effectively to 2-2, and then there'd be a whole multi-step fight about how to deal with the vacancies. But what's at stake really is the majority that Democrats have right now on the state Supreme Court of the biggest swing state in the country.
I saw Obama tweet out about this race, I think, which gives an indication that maybe, I mean, I imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine the DNC has a list of elections they're worried about. And that's the ones that they give to Obama and say, tweet about this.
But that itself, in a way, it's so not surprising that this race, given the stakes I just unpacked, would be on that list. I think for anyone who just follows this stuff, even going back to 2023, 2021, 2020, like the state Supreme Courts were really all under the radar, even when the stakes made so much sense for people to think about. I think what's really changed this, on the one hand, is the 2020 election, and again, Trump's effort to overturn that and state courts getting involved. And then, of course, the Dobbs decision and how important that made state courts on the fight for abortion. That has made these institutions that were always important just a lot more visible, I think.
And I would add the Wisconsin race in the spring that Elon Musk went in and dumped millions of dollars into. And that really drew a lot of attention to the relevance of this. But Democrats have always been, it seems to me, pretty bad when it comes to pointing out the relevance of court elections or just the implications of elections on courts. But let's go to legislative chambers. How many majorities are up in play across the country?
So the two main places to watch, the two main chambers to watch are the Virginia House, which is currently 51-49 for Democrats. So it's very small majority. Democrats are trying to expand it. And if things go their way tomorrow, it looks like they'll be able to, though, as is obvious from the fact that the majority is so narrow, there is a chance, an outside chance, Republicans getting back to the chamber. But that's the most important in a way, because if Democrats get to governorship, as we were talking about, they want full control of the state government. They want to be able to pass laws. They want to be able to pass laws on any issue people can think about, and that's the state house that's going to decide it. The other one is in New Jersey. The state house is also at play there. Every single seat is at play. Democrats have a large majority there. It'd be very, very surprising if Republicans flip it. That's not really in conversation. But there's like conservative Democrats in New Jersey. There's more progressive Democrats. That's a state with a large range of the Democratic lawmakers. So just how easy it is for Democrats to pass laws, to pass reforms, that's also at stake tomorrow. And the third majority at stake is in Minnesota. In Minnesota, there's a few special elections that could possibly flip an extremely tight chamber. It would take a big upset for the special election to go to flip seats and for the chamber to flip, but it's still something that people should be watching tomorrow.
We're talking the Minnesota Senate.
Minnesota Senate, yes.
Okay. So the big one, I mean, there are all three are relevant, obviously, but it's also in addition, again, I guess we should say this every time, in addition to the material implications of retaining a majority in the chamber or flipping a chamber, is what it signals to Republican lawmakers who might be like running for Congress. I'm in trouble. Like in these districts, are there particular districts around the country that stick out for you as sort of like ones that frontline Republicans would be looking at and go, oh shit, I'm in trouble?
That's a great question. I know just yesterday or over the weekend, we saw a Republican in Ohio who was running for a U.S. House seat drop out of the race because he thought it was no longer a winnable race, and that was a district that just changed a little in the new map Ohio passed, but that had voted against Trump by only three points. So that's exactly the sort of thing you're asking, where could there be results where the mood shifts and candidates start changing their behavior, changing their decisions? I'm going to go very down on the ballot, and just the first thing that came to mind. One thing we've talked a lot in recent years is the gains that Trump or Republicans have made among voters of color, among Hispanic voters in particular. The immediate thing that came to mind is there was a lot of attention in 2023 when Republicans flipped a council seat in the Bronx. That was the first time they had won a city council seat in the Bronx since the 80s. And that at the time, created a lot of headlines about, is this like, is this a sign of the things to come? And obviously, Trump made big gains in 2024, as we all know. And that seat, for instance, is up for grabs this year again. The Democrats are trying to flip it back. It's not going to affect what's happening in the city council, but there are a lot of seats like that people will be watching as an indication of whether the trends we saw in 2021, 2023 are gonna be.
What seat is that? Do you remember what number it is?
Number. I can tell you in the 3 seconds.
I know you have like 45 spreadsheets that are right in front of you.
It is just 3 seconds. The 13th district in the Bronx. So that's an example. Again, very local, but just as the kind of thing people are watching. I mean, obviously the margins in Virginia, in suburban Virginia, places that have been very affected by the cuts to the federal government, people will be watching for the effect of the shutdown and various things of that nature. And then a final one I'll just flag, again, at the very local level, there's executive races at the county level in some places that shifted dramatically right or blue, usually to the right in 2024 in Pennsylvania swing counties, as well as on Long Island. And those are places that people will be watching as sort of on the periphery, on the margin, places where Republicans sort of surprised in 2024 and whether Democrats can reel some of that back.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I would imagine the Bronx seat, the 13th district, there's 51, I think it's 51 city council members in New York. But I would imagine the Bronx one's going to be a little bit tainted, or maybe not. I mean, it may end up giving us a very accurate picture, but by this mayoral race, which is breaking all records, at least for early voting. And I suspect it might break records. I mean, look, it broke records in the primary. It's broken records in the early voting. I suspect it's going to break
general
election numbers, I suspect. And so that may be, it may be a sign, but it may be one of those things where it's tough to know whether it was a sign until we're looking in retrospect.
I mean, I think it's all like that in an off year, because turnout is not what it was in 2024 anywhere, even in a very high turnout election by the standards of local races, and that is always a huge caveat. I think when you're talking about whether the vibes change and whether that has effect on how people behave, then who knows, that's just so much a matter of what people talk about, what the headlines mean. Another one to just throw in, Sam, is Georgia has 2 statewide races on the ballot, extremely unusual. Georgia doesn't usually have statewide races on an off year, so who turns out where is very much the question mark. But Democrats haven't won a non-federal statewide race, like a state government statewide race, since 20 years ago in Georgia, and they have a shot tomorrow. If the Democrats flip those statewide seats, is that a sign that Georgia is like anchored blue? Of course not. The number of voters is going to be so low compared to 2024. But in terms of the conversations it could generate in the state, in terms of the confidence it could give to Democrats who want to run, and whether it affects Republicans, those are all fair questions to ask.
What are the elections that stick out for you in terms of ICE? Because now we have detention centers that are growing up across the country in various areas. It seems to me like, as much as ever, the relationship between a lot of places, it's the sheriff that deals with the county. The relationship between the local authorities and ICE becomes really, really relevant, because I think the flip side of how these elections could implicate the actions of the Democrats going into the midterms and the actions of frontline Republicans who might say, like, we already have 1 or 2 who have broken off just in the past couple of days about SNAP benefits and about keeping the government open. It also might influence the thinking of the administration of, like, okay, our plan to have a full-on Gestapo by June, we've got to push that up to April. I mean, so what races in your mind are the most relevant in the perspective of, like, the relationship between local leaders and ICE?
I mean, that's a great question, and I'm glad you're asking me and talking about it, in part because it feels like not many people are, including in the Democratic Party. And I say that because a big theme of our coverage at Bolts this year was, in January, we identified some of the sheriff races where there was ICE collaboration was quite literally at stake, because a sheriff who runs the jail, who runs local patrols was actively collaborating with ICE, places that are sort of swingy or blue-leaning, and we sort of were keeping an eye on them all year. And in most cases, no one filed to run against an incumbent Republican sheriff in the places we had already at the beginning of the year identified. And some of our coverage this year has been to ask why, has been to ask what's going on. I'm thinking of upstate New York or in Southeast Virginia, places that either were swing last year or voted for Harris, a Republican sheriff who contracts with ICE, and then he's running for re-election unopposed in the couple of places I'm thinking of. So that's, just pose that as like the context first, where this is still flying under the radar. In most cases, sheriffs are coasting unopposed. One exception to that, and sheriffs, again, are really nice to focus. They have a lot of authority to just contract with ICE without any control of the rest of the local government, is Bucks County in Pennsylvania comes to mind. It's actually a large county in the suburbs of Philly, very tight in federal elections. There's a Republican sheriff there who's sort of going rogue and doing a little more probably than the sheriff is even allowed under local government rules. And there's currently like a fight between the county commission and the sheriff. But that's a place where clearly there's a contract with ICE that's new. A Democrat is running, saying he wants to end the contract. That just kind of captures the sort of stakes we were expecting to see elsewhere. The other place I would look, maybe not as under the radar, but the governor's races are very clearly the stakes of what law enforcement at the state and local level does with ICE is very much at issue, especially in New Jersey, where the Republican candidate has really has made it one of his core promises that he will immediately end the protections at the state level that the outgoing Democrats have put in place to prevent local sheriffs and local police departments from contracting with ICE. So he has said he's going to go in and end that. So that's a very direct stake that on ICE collaboration that's going to affect what the police departments do. And maybe final stake, in New Jersey, the reason the Republican candidate can even say this is that Democrats did not pass a law that protects immigrants and that bans sheriffs and police from doing certain types of contract. A law, as we've seen in other blue states like Illinois or California. So New Jersey Democrats did not pass that law, and that's why it's really still hinging on who occupies the governor's mansion and whether they can do an executive order. So one thing to think about, no matter what happens tomorrow, is whether a law like that passes in New Jersey.
All right. Lastly, mayors, obviously big race in New York City. There's a big race that we've been following, at least in Minneapolis.
Seattle too.
Yeah. Tell us where you think it's like the most relevant mayoral races that also sort of like cross-reference with it being contested. I mean, right. I think in Boston, I think Wu is running again, but I don't think there's any real race there, it sounds like.
Well, the Patriots owner ended up...
Oh, yeah, right.
His kid ran.
Oh, he dropped out.
And he dropped out, yeah. So...
Right. Yeah, so that kid...
She's very popular, too, Wu,
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She's going to walk away with it. But where are the contested areas and where are they races that may implicate a statewide election? I mean, I imagine, Mamdani's could very well implicate the Hochul Delgado race, but that's going to be more how they get on. But I would think in a small, state, someone running in a big city, there could be some real implications in terms of like the dynamic of the state in the midterms.
Yeah, I think you already named the races that I would have started with. So, the races you named, Seattle, Minneapolis, and New York, and would have been Boston, were sort of the four races where there was a battle within people who run as Democrats between left and center. One of them is done because, as you were saying, Emma, the challenger in Boston dropped out. There's actually no one on the ballot tomorrow against Wu. So that one is done, and the other three are sort of that test of left versus center. That's happening, and in many other races for mayor, sometimes there's a Democrat or Republican, like in places like Pittsburgh or Cleveland, but they're such blue cities that they're not going to be a lot of competition there. I mean, one thing I will flag is that the half brother of J.D. Vance is running for mayor in Cincinnati against the incumbent. He's the half brother of J.D. Vance is a Republican. The incumbent mayor is a Democrat. The Democrat is very favored to win in a blue city. So we're seeing that sort of we're seeing that all around. There's a lot of states, a lot of races in upstate New York that are actually interesting because they were very competitive in the primary, and in Buffalo and a few other cities. We saw the progressive wing win races in the primary, and they're very favored to win now in the general election. But we shouldn't, just because a race just because a race seems over in the primary doesn't mean that tomorrow is sort of the day that these people are going to win properly and build power. I think in New York that's particularly interesting because you were just saying that a win by the left in Mamdani in New York City would affect state politics. He's going to have allies coming into office in January in a bunch of other cities in New York State, in the sense that there are people who sort of in the progressive end of local coalitions that are going to come in office in New York State cities, which could shift conversations at the state level around the budget, around and various sorts of conversation.
That's interesting. That's good to know. Let's hope you're right. Daniel Nichanian, founder, editor-in-chief of Bolts Magazine. Folks should head over there and check out your cheat sheets. They're right on the front page. Just really helpful stuff. Really appreciate the reporting you've been doing about carceral reform and others as well over the years. Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much. It's always fun.
Thanks,
all right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half of the program and have some fun. Just want to remind you a bunch of things. First of all, we got a Discord. You can check that out, majoritydiscord.com. Well over 15,000 people. We also, we have best ofs at the end of the year. And now, ladies and gentlemen, because it's November, we begin our official request for the best ofs. Now, here's the thing. It's the best ofs 2025, but you can include December and November of 2024 in your suggestions because...
So the election?
What's that?
The presidential election?
Yeah, well, it might be a little bit scarce around that.
Depressing shows.
Exactly. So have at it. Send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Put in the subject line, best of, and with your suggestions, and we will tally them. Brian becomes a CPA for the final month of the year so that he looks at this stuff and it's official. It's all in a locked box. There's no... He's got fiduciary duties to make the best of, be legit.
Fiduciary.
Exactly. So excited. I will also say happy birthday to this show.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of different sort of days that we mark as anniversaries around here because, the show started on Air America. But this iteration of the show, I am told by Kyle, started on November 2nd in 2010. And so this is the 15-year anniversary was yesterday.
Was that on election day or was there anything related to?
I think it was.
Didn't we do the 20-year anniversary last year?
That was the 20-year anniversary of the show.
That's extremely confusing.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
I prefaced it by saying that. Yeah, I don't understand. Was there an election on November 2nd? Maybe there was.
To go back and listen to that
in
first
2010.
episode.
I don't remember.
Midterms.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Tea Party midterms. That's right.
I guess that's what it was. I don't really remember. But I figured I'd note that. So
Elections were on November 2nd, 2010.
There you go.
so maybe that's when I started the show. That maybe made some sense.
Well, that was a bloodbath.
Didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Rough start.
Yeah.
Hasn't been necessarily glide path since then.
No. Also, today I was just reminded, looking at the date, it's the final day for the pre-order for the Majority Report shirts on shop.majorityreportradio.com. So and hat and charcoal hat. So limited edition. It's the final day that you can pre-order the Majority Report shirts and hat.
I would get on that, folks. I would get on that. That is a huge. I know there's a lot of couples that listen to this show.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great gift.
Yes.
It is basically a way to say to your partner, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I see you.
Support your interests.
I support your, it's like, I know, who you are as a person. And I did that by getting your size right and getting in a majority.
Or you get matching.
Yeah.
You could also do that. I
Power
would
walk
probably
around the
go
neighborhood.
I would probably go with different colors shirts. But if we're both wearing the shirt and you wear the hat.
Heterosexual couples, you could get one for Sam. The male can wear the Sam or a Majority Report shirt classic, and majority for the woman.
You could do that.
Or reverse in this topsy-turvy leftist world that we're trying to create where gender means nothing.
There's a whole lot of different things.
Make everyone trans.
Yes.
Also,
Transgender for everybody.
you can support this show by going to jointhemajorityreport.com, become a member. When you do, you not only get the fun half, but you get the free half free of commercials, and you can IM us. And you can also support the show if you're watching us on Twitch. Throw us your Prime subscription. You already paid for it. You can just click a button, and we will get the that month's the fraction of your Prime subscription that goes to streaming. And if you're on Rumble, by all means,
keep rumbling.
Rumble size us.
Yeah. Rumble along.
Shout out Pandemic Anxiety, our one stalwart.
Hey, we got 7 going now.
Damn, that's pretty much where we've been at.
I want to say hi to all 7 of you guys. I really appreciate you joining us.
The Mighty 7.
Also, the AM Quickie, amquickie.com. Get your news 5 days a week. Check that out as well. Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. David Griscom and I did a Sunday show. We got into Isaac Schottener's interview with Karine Jean-Pierre and talked about why people like Zoran Mamdani are the actual people to fight hate and not the sort of careerist folks that have been put at the top of the Democratic Party for 2 decades now. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Quick break, fun half.